Alright, hey guys, welcome to Internet Tomato, where we will be diving into the dark, twisted, and epic lore of Tainted Grail. I shall be your guide to unraveling the enigmas of Avalon. Today, we are continuing our lore series by going over the Homelands, Avalon, and for those willing to hear spoilers, the Everdweller. This video intends to be a balance for new players and fans alike, ensuring everyone walks away with more knowledge. Keep in mind that the lore is still developing, as Tainted Grail has games planned for the future to supplement what we know, and things are somewhat subject to change. When I come across the spoiler section of the video, I will warn you for those who want to explore Avalon's secrets on their own. Also, if you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe, or you might just get turned into a menhir. So, let's get into this. Last we left off, we theorized the origins of the universe in the Tainted Grail lore. On my Discord server, which I'd love for you to join if you'd like to talk lore or Tainted Grail, most lean toward there being no origin to the Tainted Grail universe, and it is an infinite regress, a never-ending cycle with no true beginning. This risks what's called the homunculus fallacy, which is the error of explaining something by relying on an endless chain of causes or explanations, where each step requires another step ad infinitum, without providing true resolution. Regardless of whether you believe in a god, gods, the weirdness, or a never-ending cycle creating the Tainted Grail universe, creation was somehow ignited. First, I believe, came the Homelands, a vast and tangible world. The term Homelands shifts depending on the context, similar to how someone saying America might refer to the United States of America or the Americas. To some, the Homelands refer to the region where Arthur and his people hail from, while to others, it could refer to the known world, which would be Tainted Grail's version of Europe and the Mediterranean. Lastly, it can also be reference to the entire world. For our series, when I say Homelands, I am talking about the world excluding Avalon, but keep the distinction in mind for future quotes or during your adventures in Tainted Grail. The Homelands have an ancient history, but most of it is shrouded. Races of sentient species, such as Fomorians, predate humans in the Homelands for possibly the course of eras. We do not know when they came to be, but what we do know is that Fomorians were the first sentient species, or at the least, the first sentient species that could create kingdoms. Fomorians were an aquatic race, leading to the possibility that the Homeland's creation was a slow development, perhaps a water world with land emerging later. Eventually, however, came humanity and other lesser races. Now, Fomorians in the Fall of Avalon timeline are likely considered legend to humanity, but those well-versed in history would be aware that they are, in fact, somewhere out there. They enslaved or annihilated lesser races as they viewed all of creation as their birthright. As you can imagine, for those, quote, lesser races like humanity and furbolgs, who are another race of giants, they fought back with little success and ended up having strong resentment for the Fomorians. The gods of the Homelands are plentiful. Though there are at least dozens, I have found names for 9. I may go over them in the future or perhaps discover more in due time, but these are the names of the gods from the Homelands whom I am aware of. Morrigan, Lug, Fael, Dagd, Sisinus, Saruno, the All-Father, the All-Mother, and the Forgotten Goddess. The gods are varied in being. Some, like Morrigan, have a human-like shape and a material form, while others, like the Forgotten Goddess, speak through dreams and visions, seemingly existing in a spiritual world. This could mean that the Forgotten Goddess is of a higher status than Morrigan, pointing to the possibility that there is a hierarchy among the gods. In the early days, humanity followed these deities in a cult-like fashion. People formed tribes and dabbled in their gods' magic and rituals. While some gods demanded sacrifice, some demanded mutation, others death, and others worship. The Homelands has real-world ties and influences. The biggest example is the city of All Iskandria, with the most robust library in the Homelands. This is a nod to the Library of Alexandria, but spelled differently, perhaps because the real world is supposed to be an alternate universe in the story. It is hard to judge from the lore as to whether all the Homelands had encounters with these various sentient races, or if most of the encounters were near Arthur's lands. In essence, the Homelands is the material world existing tangibly and with purpose. Unlike Avalon, the Homelands exhibit life, death, and a never-ending cycle between the two. Since there is finality to a person's life, there is a sense of legacy and merit. People build for the next generation and have a wide range of emotions and duties. To the viewer, this is a given because you would be someone from the Homelands, but other realms of existence do not share the same traits. With limited time, every second is like the dropping of a grain of sand in an hourglass. When the final grain drops, our time ends. This impending doom creates a fire in us to accomplish dreams, goals, and desires while time allows, a concept foreign to Avalonian inhabitants. Avalon, on the other hand, is a mythical island covered in a mist called weirdness. The weirdness and shape of the land feels alien to those in the Homelands. The geography is shaped in mind-bending and impossible ways. The trees, the size of skyscrapers, line portions of the island, towering over forests of saplings. The fauna feels otherworldly, with the giant worms stretching dozens of meters and whose height could reach the size of a watchtower. The weirdness reshapes the landscape and living creatures indiscriminately. Though I can't say this definitively, it appears that the Everdwellers were the first sentient inhabitants of Avalon. Everdwellers are humanoid beings with 4 arms, 3 eyes, and average around 8 to 9 feet tall, or 2.5 meters. Some depictions of Everdwellers make them appear larger, possibly closer to 15 feet tall. Another sentient race were the giants, who roamed the land as well, forming a culture and carving a portion of Avalon for themselves. While the Everdwellers have a strong affinity to the weirdness, being able to manipulate it to weave magic, the giants have significantly smaller affinity to the chaotic fog. However, the giants have roots going back countless years before humanity's conquest. Whether other sentient beings existed on Avalon before humanity's arrival is likely but not definitive. The most significant evidence of other sentient beings having lived on Avalon is the numerous ancient gods and structures that have been found. I do not have a list of the gods and goddesses of Avalon as I do the Homelands, but there is very little crossover. Only Morrigan is known to be found in both the Homelands and Avalon. The Everdwellers are considered the dominant inhabitants of Avalon. To them, the weirdness and Avalon are as normal as Earth is to us. They have a kinship with it, and planted their capital of Tuathan in the center of Avalon, where the weirdness is thickest. Tuathan's origins are misty, likely a weirdness-forged city where Everdwellers shaped reality. Now, this is where I shall give you the spoiler warning, so feel free to pause now if you want to learn deeper secrets on your own. So what exactly is Avalon? I will go over 3 different descriptions and go from there. For one, Orin, who is the surviving apprentice of Merlin, describes the Fordweller belief. Fordwellers believe that when they die, depending on the judgment passed by their gods, they either ascend to a higher plane of existence beyond the stars or descend to the lower one. This cold, unmoving hell lacks the grace of weirdness, a place that takes their third eye as well as 2 of their arms, where they lead short, painful lives with little chance of ever reincarnating into higher beings. That would be our world. So, according to Fordwellers, upon death, they will either become a human soul or ascend to beyond the stars, where the gods live. Second, the Forgotten Goddess taught her followers, the Picts, that Avalon is the island of souls. The Homelands, according to her, cannot receive souls for their new children ever since Arthur took over the island. Lastly, there is a very peculiar encounter with an enigmatic being. This being, in reference to human souls, says, Avalon is a gate through which souls go in various directions, but sometimes a soul is stuck in the middle, unable to ascend beyond the stars, unable to grow 4 arms, and unable to go to the lesser lands beyond the sea. Another regular description is that Avalon is the, quote, midpoint between the timeless kingdoms beyond the stars and the homelands. Given these perspectives, it appears that Fordwellers craft souls. The Weaver in the RPG details the soul weaving in detail. Souls are created through magical weaving and using the weirdness to create souls from raw potential. Humanity in the Homelands is dependent upon the Fordwellers for their next generation. I do not know how there is such a large number of human souls created, as Fordwellers rarely die, excluding in wars. Unless killed, Fordwellers are immortal. I'm unsure if that means that Fordwellers could sacrifice themselves when a human was born in the Homelands, or if a Fordweller weaver could craft human souls with every birth if one was not available in Avalon. Given how macabre Tainted Grail is, I have an inkling that Fordwellers likely did sacrifice themselves regularly to allow for souls to fill the Homelands with human life. And now we get to the Everdweller. I will go to the Pale Lady to explain. According to her, Avalon is a midpoint between the far simpler human reality and the timeless kingdoms beyond the stars. And just like humans reached Avalon with a mission of conquest, the timeless kingdoms sent their ambassador to maintain balance. Apparently, the Avalonians call this creature an Everdweller, and they find it as alien as humans see the Avalonians. No one knows its real purpose, and the only thing the Pale Lady learned for certain is that the Everdweller cannot survive far from the boiling, primordial weirdness of Tuathan. In writings found in the Archspire and the RPG, the Everdweller is sometimes called the Watcher. Its role in the war between humanity and the Fordwellers was mostly passive. It rarely got involved. Here is the description from your first encounter in the Age of Legends. A light suddenly shines above you, as if a second sun formed on the firmament. You look up, shielding your eyes from the blaze. Something is descending from the top of Tuathan's wall. A golden leaf floating from a tree. This figure is much larger than any of the enemies you've seen before, clad in yellow light that bends around it like a shroud, and surrounded by a cloud of arms that seem to flicker in and out of existence so fast you can't even count them. Its smooth, featureless head is surrounded by a revolving halo of eyes. Somehow, the creature manages to be regal and abhorrent at the same time, ethereal, yet emanating with strength. In addition to this haunting form, it is also described as having eyes in the center of its countless palms. It only fought when there was a clear chance humanity could conquer Tuathan, and it also decided to step in to unmake Merlin. I know that may be a spoiler for a future video when I go over the Age of Legends, but understand the sheer power of the Everdweller. Merlin was virtually a god among men, and he attempted to fight the Everdweller before being poofed out of existence. This being, whatever it is, has such a strong attunement to the weirdness that he can remove a godlike figure from existence. What kind of being can unmake Merlin? I believe there are two valid possibilities. Either the Everdweller is a first god that humbled itself to live on Avalon, or it is an angel from beyond the stars. This is honestly a little bit of a tough one for me, because even the gods on Avalon do not possess the power to uncreate someone. I mean, look at the Chalk Mare from the previous video. Even she, a goddess, couldn't ascend to the sky and create a new constellation without the party's intervention. Yet this Everdweller could simply pop a person out of existence if it chose to, and it possessed foreknowledge of the future for at least 1,000 years, much like the Chalk Mare. So that leads us to the conclusion of the last video, where I said the Everdweller may hold the key to the universe's origin, depending on what you think the Everdweller is. Why? Well, because the Everdweller is dependent upon the weirdness to survive. If the Everdweller is one of the true gods from beyond the stars, and the Everdweller is dependent upon the weirdness to exist, the weirdness likely predates the gods. However, if you think that the Everdweller is not part of some original pantheon, it is likely an angel with more power than even the gods of Avalon or the Homelands. Regardless of your view, I think it then becomes clear that the kingdoms beyond the stars must have weirdness or something very similar to it permeating their reality, where either the subjects of the gods or even the gods themselves depend on this substance to exist. A few questions still rattle in my mind with this. For one, why? Why create humanity in the first place? And who did so? Humanity is one of the latest and least of the sentient races, yet humanity was a necessary piece to a mysterious cosmic cycle. Why were they not necessary in the early days of the Fomorians, who ruled much of the world? For two, do the giants have souls like the Fomorians, since they are sentient? And if so, why is humanity dependent on Avalon for souls, and they're not? Why is it so paramount that Avalon exists and is kept in order by the Everdweller? These are big questions, but tough to answer. My current theory is similar to the Fordweller's belief. Humanity is the result of cosmic punishment for either the gods or the Fordwellers. In the next episode, we'll dive into the history of Avalon and the Homelands, leading to King Arthur's ascent to the throne. For now, please like and subscribe, consider joining our Discord for random polls and Tainted Grail chats. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I really do hope to see you guys later. So yeah, bye-bye.